Ride in the car. Ride in the car, Bella. We're going for a ride in the car? Yes. Wait there, Bella. Wait. Good girl. Right, so we have arrived here at Warren Lodge, or Thetford Warren Lodge, as it's known. Fair bit of history to this place. It goes back to the 1400s. As the name suggests, it's it's full of rabbit warrens, really. And back in the day, this place was basically a rabbit farm. Rabbits were, they were the chicken of the day. Come on, Bella. But their pelts, their fur, would be used to make clothing, and their meat is really quite good for you, very high in protein. And like I say, it was the chicken of the day. Chicken was considered a luxury. Now, there's not much to see here, there's not much left of it. There's a building just behind these trees which we're walking up to now, and there's a couple of signs which explain some of the history which we'll look at in a minute. But the main reason we come here is it's a great place to bring your dogs and give them a good walk. Thetford Forest is just behind it, and Bella's really excited to be out, as you can see. Careful, Bella. So we'll have a wander up to the house that's left, the lodge, or what's left of it. We'll have a look around, get some good pictures, and we're going to have a right good walk with Bella in the woods today. Now, the first time I came here, which was about 5 years ago, all of this that you see here, all this greenery, wasn't here. It was just open, well, not flat land, but there was just grass and some wildflowers. So it's good to see this place really flourishing. And it's completely wild, so should be good for wildlife. We're just coming up to the old lodge now. There it is in the distance. We can't unfortunately go inside it, but we can look around, and there's a few features of it left. But for the time being, I'm just exploring a couple of these paths around here. Careful, Bella. Bella's loving it because even though the activity, the human activity here is gone mostly, there is still a lot of rabbit activity around here. So there's lots of holes for her to stick her head in, lots of smells, lots of poo to roll in because dog. But yeah, this used to be just open grassland, and now it's all full of trees, which is nice to see. And so lots of brambles as well. Right, we'll circle around to the lodge, see what we can see. And here is just one such example of the rabbit activity that's here. You get piles like this all over the place, out here on the plains and in the woods. There's rabbit droppings. Yeah, there's probably hundreds of rabbits here. There's rabbit holes everywhere you walk. And this is what remains of the lodge, Thetford Warren Lodge. We'll have a walk around it, shall we? Someone's been cutting the grass up here, so it's interesting. Interesting. So this is one of the signs that's been erected. There's another one further around that we'll look at in a minute. It just gives a brief history of the lodge. I'll give you the abbreviated version of it. So it was probably, we don't really know, built in the late 13th century by the monks of Thetford Priory. And this would have been a much larger, probably a bit bigger than the town of Thetford itself at the time. There's a picture here of just how large it is. I know, Bella. So, and rabbit farming continued here for, well, quite a very long time. It continued until the early 20th century, and it was quite a lucrative business at the time. And yeah, according to the history, this place was abandoned in 1935 when most of it was destroyed by fire. When we look at this picture here, what we're looking at now is that middle part, the tallest bit, but the two wings used to exist as well. And yeah, and it's built from these medieval style, really thick walls and thin windows. Oh, Bella! And that was to protect against attack from poachers, because yeah, the rabbit skins were extremely valuable, along with all the equipment that was used as well. Oh, Bella's not too keen on standing here, so we're going to go have a look inside. It looks to have had some work done to it. This is what I mean here by just how thick the walls are, and they're made from this flint stone. It's very interesting. And these big holes here. I imagine where some sort of gate or enormous door once stood. If we look inside, there's this cage that stops us going in. There's spikes along the top, which is unfortunate. But, and of course, there's the customary pile of rubbish, because human beings. Yeah, if we look through the bars, we can see in here, there's the thin windows. I don't think the bars on the windows are original, although they might be, who knows. And then we have what remains of the fireplace, and it turns out that what went on was the rabbit skins and the meat and the traps and equipment and everything were kept downstairs, and the warrener and his wife would live upstairs. And there's the remains of their fireplace on the upper floor. And what's especially interesting is when I first visited here, this place was just an open-top ruin. But at some point, it's had a roof added to it. That looks to be about the extent of the restoration work done here. But someone's cutting the grass outside as well, so this place is clearly being looked after. Might have to do some research and see if there's any plans for any further restoration work. It would be really interesting if we could go and stand inside and get a closer look at, say, those fireplaces, or if this place would be restored to, well, something of its former glory in the future. I think that'd be really nice to see. Coming back outside here, look at the top there, we can see the remains of the old roof, some of it. Those little different coloured bricks, tiles on the edge. So it had a different shaped roof, but yeah, it's had a flat wooden roof installed now. And that there looks to be a bit of lead guttering that's been added as well. So clearly something has been done with this. I don't quite understand why they would have added a roof and nothing else. I mean, this thing stood for hundreds of years without with, you know, presumably little maintenance. It stood at least since 1935 with no roof on it, but I don't know. Maybe there is some effort to restore it. Interestingly, we look at the sides of the building here. I can't see any sign of those wings. There's no sign of any ruins either side of it, so it's been cleared away. On the far side, which we'll go and look at in a second, there's evidence of a doorway, but it's on the upper floor. There looks to be only one way in and out on the ground floor, so I'm curious to know how they got in and out of those wings. Did they have to go outside and then back in, or were they bricked up after they burnt down? Who knows? Looking at this picture here on the sign, it would appear that this is the front of the building and the wings went either side of it. You notice this is the door. We've got a window, and a window. And we look at the front of it here, and we have the door and the 3 windows. So the wings would have been on either side of it, the big one being here. But there's no sign of it, or any sign of how they got in and out. Now the back side of it is rather interesting. We've got the same windows. This bit in the middle here is the chimney breast for the 2 fireplaces that we saw. If we look closely on there, there's these 2 lines, almost like something once stood up against it. So perhaps there was an extra wing on the back of this, who knows? And then we've got this big hole here. Now obviously those bars aren't an original feature. That looks like it was perhaps a doorway at once. Seems too large to be a window. So what was that for? Was he an extra bit at the back? I highly doubt there was a balcony. Again, I think further research is needed on this. And this long, thin hole here goes all the way up the top. And it comes out up there. Almost like that was a miniature fireplace on its own. So, yeah. This simple square bit of old building is quite the mystery. So this is the second sign before we move fully into the woods. And it just gives a little bit more about the rabbit industry that was here. It existed from the late 12th into the early 20th century. And there was a huge area devoted to it. And like I said earlier, rabbits, they thrived in this area because it had a dry climate and really light soil, so it was ideal for burrowing. But yeah, rabbits, they were kept for their meat and their fur. The fur could be turned into felt, which was turned into hats and sold as far away as South America, it says here. But also it could be used to make clothing. And like I said, the meat was really rather nutritious. It's very high in protein. Yeah, and yeah, the warrening, it died out in the 20th century because rabbit fur was falling out of fashion. And the myxomatosis virus was killing a lot of rabbits, and that affected the quality of their meat as well. That was a virus that was introduced deliberately to the UK by man to apparently control the rabbit population, which is really sad because now we have these horrendous chicken farms, battery chickens and such like. But it really didn't need to be that way. We could have just carried on with rabbits, using their fur, eating their meat. Instead we blew it, and now we're in this situation of terrible ecological damage being done when it really didn't have to be that way. It's quite sad, really. Alright, Bella's getting impatient with me. Let's head into the woods, shall we? What's in here? Come on then, Bella, if you want to go. Look at this. This place is huge. You can walk for hours in here. Just zoom in as far as I can down there. Just look at how far away it is. There's not much to see in here. If we go right down the very bottom, which I'm not planning on doing, we may see some commercial logging and forestry. At the moment, we're just out for a nice gentle walk with Bella. Come on, girl. Yeah. Now, one thing you'll notice if you ever come here, and as we're walking through, is that this section of the woodland looks, well, it looks like woodland. Apart from this rather wide path down the middle, either side of us, we've just got trees and plants and such like. And that's because this bit is pretty much just normal wild woodland. I believe it is managed to an extent, but it's very much just left to its own devices. Now, as we go deeper, we're going to cross over into commercial logging territory. Now, we're still allowed to walk there. We're not going to be trespassing or anything. But you will notice there is a stark difference. Instead of your mature trees, tall trees like this with leaves all the way from the ground up to the top, we will see trees very similar to this one here, in fact, which are almost completely straight, and they'll have their branches trimmed and pruned all the way nearly up to the top, like that one. And the reason they do that is they want the wood to be as straight as possible, because it's used in furniture and planks and other commercial timber. Here's a random log that's just been left here. It's been cut at both ends, but you get quite a lot of straight planks out of there, quality wood as well. And the other thing you'll notice is that the trees just aren't here, there and everywhere. They haven't grown naturally. They're all in very neat grid lines along the way, and they're all one type of tree as well. Now, it's a long walk before we get to that, and I haven't quite decided if I want to walk that far, but we'll see what happens. Now, there's elements of this. If you look here, you can see some of the trees are in a line. Not these ones here, these have just grown naturally. But that one, and then those three over there, are all in a row. They will have been planted like that and grown that way. And then at some point the decision's been taken not to fell them and just to let this bit go wild. So let's carry on and see what else we can see if there's anything interesting. So we're making our way down that central path, and we've just come off to the side so that I could show you this. Now, the last time I came here was over a year ago, and what we're looking at here, this big open space, is an area that's been relatively recently cut down. You know, it's commercial logging. Now, when I first came here, it had just happened, as in some of the logging equipment was still sitting here, and it looked like the scene from an apocalypse. There was cut down tree stumps, there was the odd log here and there, and it just looked like utter carnage. But it's perfectly natural as well. Well, it's not natural, but it's perfectly normal. Now, we're looking here, the bracken has grown up, and in places it looks to be almost up to my head height. And that's just because there's now an abundance of light that allows it to grow. Bella! The dog is pulling me along, doing my nutting. Anyway, but that is, the trees that were cut down would have been planted for the purposes of being cut down later. And, you know, people say, oh, it's terrible for the environment, they're cutting down trees. Well, those trees wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for commercial logging. And they will plant more. And if you look, the area isn't dead. It's quite clearly flourishing. Now, when they come to replant this, all of this bracken will be cleared away, obviously. But yeah, those trees existed for the purposes of being cut down, and they will plant more. And it's sustainable business. You know, you cut it down, you have to replace it, and they will do that. They're not just going to leave this open with no trees in. In the distance, you can see the next lot. If we look along there, you can see what I was talking about. All these perfectly straight trees with no leaves or branches except at the very top. And that's done on purpose. So I think we'll keep going down this little path. We can get a closer look at what I'm talking about. And as you can see, there's a few stumps left in this open area. They're just the bits that they clearly didn't want. Maybe the wood was damaged or something, so they just took what they could get. But yeah, let's keep going down this path, and shortly we'll come to the commercial logging area, and we'll be able to have a proper look. I've just stopped here to have a quick look at this. This is the bottom end of a tree that's been blown over. Clearly it took some wind or something. Don't know what's caused it to happen. Hasn't happened, well, depends on your definition of naturally. You know, it was no doubt nature that caused it to happen, but the tree was probably alive when it happened. I mean, first of all, try and imagine the force that it must have taken to bring this thing over. Now, I had to dig up a small tree stump from my garden a few years ago, and that felt like a monumental effort. This thing was very much alive and much, much larger. And yeah, it's just been tossed clean over. All the roots are broken. But also, it's interesting to look at, you can see the layers of the soil. So you look up here, we've got that nice brown sandy soil that we were walking on earlier. It looks like you go, oh, the branch is getting me, bloody wind. It looks like you go 50 centimetres to a metre down and you get this sort of white chalky soil. Yeah, interesting. And here's another thing to point out. A lot of people, when, you know, 'cause everyone's getting very, you know, eco-conscious these days, and rightly so as well, there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people think it's an absolute disaster if a tree falls down or is cut down. It's really not the case. And we look at this tree here. Now, the flat end makes it look like it's been cut down, and I think in there is the remains of the stump. Now, there's no way of knowing why it was cut down. Maybe it wasn't safe, or, you know, there's no way of knowing. It evidently happened a long time ago, so if we look over here, other trees have grown up around it. It's been lying here that long. But just look at this bit of wood. There will be countless numbers and species of insects living in that log, and it will sit here for decades and decades, providing a habitat. And the insects will grow, and the insects can then go on to pollinate other plants. They can be food for wild birds. So yeah, you have an entire little ecosystem that will be there because this tree fell. That's just the way of nature. Everything sort of, what goes around comes around in nature. So it was a disaster for the tree, but don't go trying to convince me this was some sort of disaster for nature. It really isn't. Bella, on the other hand, is proving to be a bit of a disaster for nature. How have you done that, Bella? Why are we dragging a piece of Thetford forest along with us? Come on, let's... Oh, come on, that's it. Bloody hell, animal. We're here to appreciate nature, not rip it up out of the ground. Bloody hell. There's another two fallen trees here and here. And they're all in this exposed area here. But looking at them, they look like they've fallen a very long time ago. And I vaguely remember them being here when this logging here had only just happened. So I don't think they've fallen, I mean, as a result of the logging. Clearly some sort of weather event has knocked them over. I don't think it's been done on purpose, as in man did it, because why would you do that? If you wanted to take these trees down, you would just cut them down. Why would you go to the effort of pushing them over like this? Curious. Something's clearly taken a lot of trees down. This one here is fucking massive. Look at the fucking hole it's left. I'm not going to go down there, but that, if I stood at the bottom of that pile is easily twice as tall as I am. And just look at the tree that's left behind. There's been a massive amount of force to knock that fucker over. Right, so we're at the edge of this, I'm not going to call it a clearing, this cleared bit. Clearing sounds too natural. Just at the edge of it, and we're going in now. And Bella's decided we're going in, because she's been very impatient today. We're going into the section that I told you about earlier. Now, to the left of us is the wild, natural woodland. To the right of us is the managed woodland. And if we look in here, you can see what I mean. There are no branches low down in here. And all of these trees are in nice, neat rows. Let's follow this path and let's have a look. Now, we couldn't go very far in here the last time I came. Oh, there's bikers coming. Hold on. Right. We might be on one of the mountain bike trails here, to be fair, so we'll have to be careful. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So the last time I came, we couldn't get very far in here. Yeah, they'd put a lot of fences up and didn't want people going in, which is understandable. You know, logging requires very large, very heavy and very dangerous equipment. Here we go, this is what I'm talking about. I'll stand up on this tree stump. Look down there. If the sun was setting, it'd look like something from a horror film. You can see how all the trees are planted in nice, neat rows. There's also these markings on the trees, which we'll go and have a look at. They're quite fresh. Now, I've no idea what they mean. Most of them have these green marks on them. And some of the others have these question marks on them in red. And then some of them have green dots. No idea what any of it means. Sure, it means something if you're working for the company doing the logging or the forestry, but yeah, Lord knows what it actually means. I suppose there's advantages and disadvantages from a nature point of view to all this. I mean, down here, there is a massive amount of sunlight. And it shows. I mean, look over there, there's grass growing. There's no end of bracken growing as we go further in. So there's a lot more wildlife down here on the ground. Whereas back where we were, in the natural woodland, so much of that sunlight has been blocked out. So there's no grass growing, there's very little plant life at ground level. The trees are taking up all the sunlight. So whilst this bit of the forest is very, very man-made, it's, it's not necessarily bad for nature. So, and you can really see what I mean as well. Standing here, just look at that. It is so much brighter down here. Right, let's keep going. We're here to walk the dog mainly, not stand around filming trees. So this is the edge of that clearing. We're about half of the way into it, maybe a third of the way into it. And yeah, just thought I'd give you a little bit of a view of it. Now, I don't know anything about forestry or logging, like I've said. I've no idea why they cleared this section and not this section. I don't know why they haven't replanted this section yet with trees. They seem to have just let it get overgrown with all this bracken. I don't know why they've left some of the trees. I mean, some of them are obvious. There's one over there that's just lopsided. I don't know, maybe the timber just wasn't good enough for them, so they took the top bit that was nice. That one there, if we look, has no bark on it. I've no idea if that's as a result of the logging or if it's happened since or if it was like that before. Who knows? I do know that if a tree loses its bark, it can result in deformities in the tree. It won't grow straight, which is what they're looking for. But yeah. But I tell you what, I am quite glad. There's a certain serenity to just standing here. Because we're exposed to the wind. I'll just look up there. It's blowing through what leaves they have, and they're just swaying ever so slightly. And other than Bella occasionally making a bit of noise. Bella, leave that. Other than Bella occasionally making a bit of noise and getting into bother, there's not another sound. I do need to find somewhere to sit though. I want to sit down and have a bit of a snack. Got a drink. Bella probably needs a drink as well. So let's see if we can find a fallen log or something to sit down on, shall we? Naturally, of course, Bella has sniffed out and found a piece of rabbit. Don't know if that's a tail or a leg, I don't know. Yeah, well done, Bella. Yeah, swipe it out of the way whilst I'm trying to do something. Yeah, of course, you had to sniff it and then try and chew it. Bloody animal. Just shows there are some rabbits still left out here. There aren't actually as many holes, rabbit holes out here, but leave it, Bella. Told you about eating bits of dead animal that you find. Never listen, do you? Now, I was going to head back that way. Oh, you've done yourself a tangle, haven't you, Bella? Ridiculous creature. That way will lead us back to the car park eventually. But I've just seen, if we come around, down there, a giant red flag, which means either there's some logging going on that we can go and look at. I'm going to say 99% that's there to indicate we can't go past that point. There'll be a sign there saying do not enter logging forestry in progress. But we might be able to see something interesting. 99% that's what it's going to mean when we get there. I'd say 1% we're being invaded by China. Let's go find out. So one other thing I've noticed it and then I've remembered why. Remember, I've been here a few times before. I mentioned earlier that it's quite serene here. It's very quiet. There's no other noise other than the wind in the trees. Well, I mean, there is a few other noises. I'm hearing a few insect noises as we're coming through this bit. The bit I was stood at earlier was completely silent, but we were in like the heart of the commercial woodland. Now we're a bit closer to the wilding bit. There's oh, Bella, stop pulling me. Now that we're a bit closer to the wilding bit, there's more insect life. Seen a few bees, evidence of spiders and crickets and such like. Earlier, we heard a few songbirds, and we saw one lovely bird of prey. I didn't manage to get any decent footage of it, but it was soaring really high, and it was calling as it flew over that big clearing. It was really quite beautiful to see. But the trees are managed in here, but you will find that the wildlife is also managed. And by that I mean they will manage things like squirrels. You will not see a squirrel in this woodland, I promise you. And the reason is that some species are destructive. Now, the grey squirrel, which is 99% of the squirrels that you'll see here in the UK, they are an invasive and very destructive species. They will strip the bark from trees, which of course, when you're running commercial woodland, you don't want, because then you end up with deformed trees and you can't use them for wood and you lose money. But you also don't really want them in natural woodland either, because then your trees are being damaged. But they will also breed extremely quickly, use up all of the local food supply, and then they'll start eating songbirds' eggs. I even saw a video once of a squirrel got into an owl box. I managed to chuck an owl out of its nest, and then it proceeded to eat the eggs that it was looking after. An owl. And this squirrel just went in there, fought with it, and chucked it out. Oh, what was that? Random piece of dead animal as you're walking along. Looks like a rabbit foot. So, yeah, now you probably won't see them, but they will keep a very close eye here on things like the squirrel population. Now, people might say, well, you should just leave nature to it. Well, no, you can't really do that. I mean, grey squirrels are not native to the UK. They're invasive and they're destructive. And, yeah, they're here because of man, so we have to control them. It's not nice. I mean, they taste nice. But it's not nice, but it does have to be done. And, yeah, unfortunately, they have to be controlled. It's normally done by shooting. So, yeah. There's not much in the way of wild animals here, and it's for a reason, really. They have to be managed. Right, we're almost at this flag. Let's go and see what it's all about. All right, it's not what I thought. I thought it was going to be something from the company saying, oh, you can't go past this point. That sign there says, increased risk to life when red flags or red lamps displayed. And if we come over here, I didn't realise we'd walked this far. That says, no public access, MOD bylaws apply. Now, Thetford Ranges, I didn't realise we'd walked so far. I thought the golf club was between us and the ranges, but apparently we've walked up to it. So we're definitely not going to go any further into there. If we look through there, that's probably where they do the shooting. And I'm not talking pistols and rifles, I'm talking tanks and shit. So we ain't going in there. There's some sort of old gate that we might have a look at. But if we look right down this road, which is a semi-paved road as well, you see right down the bottom there, I can get the zoom in, there's more red flags, there's 2 of them, and there's some more further up the road behind us as well. So that's what that means, and we shan't be going any further than this. Definitely need to head back. That being said, there's a lovely breeze blowing up this road. Oh, getting a bit muggy and sweaty, but it's lovely up here. Yeah, we're not going that way, Bella. I think if I was going to explore down here, I'd want to bring my mountain bike with me, because it's just miles in every direction. So, yeah. Let's head back and see what else we can find. Oh, look! A series of huge red flags. And yet I married it anyway. Fuck's sake. Now, I've just come off the beaten track slightly here to show you what I was talking about earlier about sunlight reaching the ground. Now, over there is where we were earlier when I was talking about it. And you can see right through the trees, and you can see there's lots of growth along the ground. Most of it is bracken. That seems to be quite prevalent out here. But that's just the way it is. Now, directly opposite, just across this little path that we're walking along, is a wild section. And you can see it's just, well, it's like night and day. It's noticeably darker in here. Now, my camera's probably doing a pretty good job of cancelling that out. It does work pretty well in low light conditions. But you can still see, and if you look at the ground, we're sort of on the edge here, so there's a few bits of bracken, but they're nowhere near as big as they are on the other side. And further in, there's nothing. There's just bits of twig and bits of fallen tree. Yeah. So, yeah, sometimes an abundance of trees isn't necessarily the best thing. There is probably far more wildlife over there than there is in here. And there was actually a section for anyone who has Amazon Prime, the video, or Amazon Video. Jeremy Clarkson's doing a series, or he's done a series called Clarkson's Farm. And in it, he owns a patch of woodland. I don't know how big it is really, but yeah, it's a substantial amount. And he has a load of the trees cut down. And I mean, an enormous amount of wood comes out of it. It's actually quite impressive. And he tweeted a picture of the amount of timber that had been taken out of this woodland. And it was several tons, like a good few hundred tons, I think. I'll see if I can find the picture and the actual amount of timber that came out of it. Obviously, I'm not going to show the clip because that'll attract the copyright trolls. And he got jumped on for it, saying, oh, you're just destroying everything natural, typical Jeremy Clarkson. And then we see him, he goes into the woods, and there's no shortage of trees at all. But what there is an abundance of sunlight at ground level. And even a few days afterwards, you can see the difference it's making. There's insects everywhere, you can hear them. And over time, grass will grow, more plants will grow at ground level. you'll get ground nesting birds. Wildlife will come, will move in. So, yeah, it just goes to show that trees aren't everything, and sometimes cutting them down is better than leaving them. So, not always though, and I don't claim to be an expert on it, but yeah, I was just walking past this little patch and I thought I'd show you what I meant. Here's something else to illustrate my point. We've just got to the end of the path. We can just see that red flag right down in the distance. I don't think I can actually zoom in far enough to see it. It's that speck in the centre of shot now. And we're about to head back into the sort of wild woodland. And you can see it's all nice and well lit here. Kind of well lit down that path. And if you look where we're going, fucking hell. We get fucking murdered down here. Christ. So, yeah, and you can see the amount of plant life at ground level stops. And it's dark in here. Still haven't found anywhere to sit down. We're nearly back at the car now. Feet are starting to hurt. I haven't filmed nearly as much as I normally do on these excursions because I'm well aware that my videos are just a bit too long sometimes, most of the time. Yeah, I've been walking for a good few hours now, so I'll be glad to get back to the car. Me and Bella can sit and have a bit of a drink and a snack. And oh bloody hell, dog. The one tree root in the whole path. How have you done that? Come on. Oh, bloody hell. What the hell? Give me my dog lead back, you little shit. Fuck's sake. Right. Let's carry on. Like I say, nearly back at the car now. Right, finally back where we started. Now I can hear screaming children around this corner, which is actually the first lot of other people I've seen since getting here. Oh, here they come. There we go, homeward stretch, back to the car. We'll have a drink in the car, shall we, Bella? But yeah, as I was saying before, that person came around the corner, because not everyone's keen on being filmed, so I try and keep other people out of it. Yeah, as I was saying, one of my favourite things about coming here is the size of it means if you don't want to be around people, you won't be. Now, when I arrived, there was a couple just walking back to their car. They got in the car and left. Then as me and Bella were setting off, another car arrived. They were somewhere behind us, but then they didn't catch up to us when we were up at the lodge. And then all the time we were in the woods, we saw those two cyclists, which, to be fair, we were on the cycle trail. And then we haven't seen another soul until just now. There was a family having a picnic under the building, and there was two men a minute ago that were just setting off on their walk as well. So, yeah, you'll see people in and around the lodge, and you'll see people in and around the car park. Other than that, you're not going to see anyone. I'm just noticing there's two very interesting things here. Let's have a look. How have you done? Bella, sit. I'll just jump straight back out. You want a drink, Bella? Yeah, you're panting, aren't you? Yeah, come on, let's get you some water. What's this? Look. Yeah. Alright, let me get it to you. Come on, down here. There you go. Good gal. Yeah. Isn't that nice? Now, Yeah. Go on, keep drinking, girl. Good girl. Now I do have a refreshing beverage of my own somewhere. Right, I'm going to call that the conclusion of this trip to Warren Lodge, Thetford Warren Lodge. Don't know how long we've been here, good couple of hours now. But it's time to go home. I said a second ago I had a couple of interesting things to show you. One was that van over there, which I thought was abandoned because the doors and windows are open. It's really beat up, and it looks just full of crap, but there's actually a guy in there who wasn't too happy with me looking around his van, but never mind. And the other was this little red classic Micra. Not many of those left. That's an original Nissan Micra J-Reg. I'm not going to do any close-up filming of it because, well, it's not my car. They haven't brought it to a car show, and it's not really relevant to the topic of this video. But it's always nice to see older cars still running around and being well looked after. Yeah, I'll go have a bit of a closer look, but I'm not going to film it. So yeah, but for now, thank you for watching.